where it levitated and kind of like the ship from the Philadelphia experiment where it like disappeared and then reappeared. It like phase shifted and reappeared embedded into the wall of his lab. And so
what's up, guys? If you're not even without what we were talking about earlier, where it turns into tribes and it becomes religious in a negative way, remove that for a second.
Yeah.
Ufology itself is inherently, involuntarily, a religious type, no pun intended, phenomenon, because you are talking about something that, if discovered or if known, could unhatch questions about the very meaning of life, which is what the global religions do in their own way. And you even have that overlapping in the ufology. You got these holy UFO people and shit too. I've had some in here as well who talk about that. And it's like, okay, I don't know. But when it turns into that, people will put questions from beyond the realm of this life as a potential explanation at one point or another onto anything that's ever happened, because it's bigger than what happens on this world. So any conspiracy that's happened on this world, or in this world, is not as big as that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like inevitable that
it's
they do
the
that.
ultimate question.
But I agree with you. People will just toss it on everything. Like, oh yeah, Kennedy was killed over aliens.
Yeah.
Was he?
They have people literally make a living talking about Bigfoot's connection to UFOs. That one I don't even understand. But it's like, okay, they want to take credit over everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I appreciate your healthy skepticism, because I think you have to be careful with that. But you also made a pretty in-depth video on the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Oh, yeah.
And I know this is something you look at a lot. So I've had Matt LaCroix in here a couple different times, like for 4 total episodes. I've had Luke Caverns in here for a couple episodes. There's some other guys we're looking to bring in here. Obviously, they've talked about it in some great depth. They fall on different ends of it, and talking about LaCroix and Caverns. But, you know, this is one of those I just think it's cool. Like, I'm very ambivalent about it. I have no idea. I'm the farthest thing from a historian on it. But for people out there who need to be caught up on the Great Pyramid of Giza and what the narratives are, obviously many of you have heard this before, but can we just start there with the basics and then get to what you've discovered on this?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Pyramid of Giza, I mean, in a cut down version of the video, it took me 23 minutes, so we can give this a try, right? I don't necessarily know the conclusions to draw out of it, because a lot of people have some really out there theories. In my video, I did put out one that was pretty out there, and I did catch a little bit of flack from it in the comments.
What was that?
It was an experiment that a guy named Joe Parr did. And Joe Parr, and this is real research that you can probably Google and find, and that's how I confirmed that it's a real thing, not just something made up, you know? There was a real guy named Joe Parr, has since been deceased, but he spent like a decade or two studying the Great Pyramid, and he believed that the pyramid had an energy field around it, and he thought it had to do with the geometry of the pyramid shape. And before I even talk about this in the video, that's where I talk about all the insane numbers around the geometry and the construction of the pyramid, which we can definitely get to. But he was able to actually measure a low level field of some sort.
What does
around,
he mean by field?
Like electromagnetic field, you know. I don't necessarily know what he meant, but some type of, like, if you have like those electromagnetic meters or whatever, you could detect different fields.
Sure.
You know.
Okay.
And so he had a theoretical experiment that apparently did take place where he would have recreations of models that he built of the pyramid, and he would do things like send electrical charges through it, kind of going back to like Die Glock, and he would put like a spinning centrifuge in the center of it. So it's very similar type of I guess logic or science, if you want to call it that, around Die Glock and that wonder weapon that we thought may be connected to Kecksburg somehow, right? So apparently in one of his experiments, he noticed that when he made this field correct with the centrifuge spinning, the pyramid would start to form an energy bubble that would sometimes make it look like it went invisible for a few seconds, and sometimes it would actually levitate a little bit if the bubble was strong enough.
The whole pyramid.
The whole model pyramid that he built, right? And then he said that he did this experiment so much that he figured out that the effect of the bubble was so strong, and this is directly quoted out of his papers that you can Google and find, that he felt that the strength of the bubble formed from the pyramid was strongest between the dates of December 12th through 16th, and he thinks it has to do with the fact that it's at that time of year that the Earth passes through a flow of charged particles coming from the sun. He thinks it had something to do with the charged particles coming from the sun. So this apparently happened one time where it got so crazy, and this is where it made the cut for my video, where it levitated, and kind of like the ship from the Philadelphia experiment where it like disappeared and then reappeared, it like phase shifted and reappeared embedded into the wall of his lab. And so that one experiment led him to believe that the pyramid may have been some sort of a time machine because of its inherent ability to transverse hyperspace. And that was like his conclusion based off of his conversations, right?
Do you think there's anything to the possibility? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
That it is what the mainstream has tried to say it is for so long, which is that this pharaoh Khufu built a pyramid. It was supposed to be his tomb, and that's what it was. Do you think there's anything to that?
I don't. Because one of the things that a lot of people don't really know about the pyramid is that the official narrative is that the pyramids were built as tombs, but we've never found a mummy in any of the great pyramids of Giza, those three pyramids. To my knowledge, some people say that pyramids have been found in, or like mummies have been found in other pyramids, like throughout Egypt. But a lot of those pyramids are copycat pyramids that were built far after the Great Pyramid. And the crazy thing about the Great Pyramid is that, and the two ones surrounding it, is that those are the original pyramids. But there's hundreds of pyramids in Egypt. Yeah. Most of them were built hundreds, if not thousands of years later, and most of them have crumbled to time. They are no longer standing. They're nowhere near as architecturally sound. And the pyramid itself, they're withstanding the test of time. By the way, when you look into just the measurements of how large the pyramid is, it's kind of mind-blowing, but it's also mind-blowing to realize that the stones are not held in place with any mortar or concrete or anything. They are held in place literally using just their own weight, and they've, using nothing but their own weight, withstood the test of thousands of years. The original narrative is that, they were built in 4500 BC by the pharaoh Khufu, right? And the Sphinx was theoretically built after that to guard the Great Pyramid. The Sphinx was theoretically built by the son of Khufu, Khafre, right? Yeah. And so we all know about, I'm not sure if your viewers know, but I'm sure that you've probably heard of Robert Schoch and John Anthony West, and their research around the Sphinx being, much older than just 4,000 years.
And what did they say what the alleged use case was for it?
They said that first off, they said the Sphinx was just erected to protect the pyramids. It was like a symbolism.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so it was built by the son, and then the son also apparently built one of the smaller pyramids of the three that are the Great Pyramids, right? So the son said that he was put in one of the tombs. The father was put in the Great Pyramid, but no mummies have been found in any of these pyramids. In fact, unlike pretty much anywhere else in Egypt, there's not even been hieroglyphs found inside of the Great Pyramid. And most people don't know that. And the only reason we think that the Great Pyramid was once the tomb of Khufu was because his name was written on the walls inside the Great Pyramid, but it wasn't inscribed like regular hieroglyphs. It was painted with red paint. Who knows when that red paint was put there? because it wasn't carved into the walls. So we know for a fact it wasn't put there at the time that it was built.
Right.
So was it put there right after, or potentially hundreds, if not thousands of years later, by someone who's writing graffiti on the walls? You know, and for me, like, if I go and tag the side of your fucking apartment building, does that mean I fucking built it?
No.
Exactly. So, for all we know, Khufu might have found the pyramid and put his name on the walls, right? And so
That's possible.
That's where a lot of people, you know, and there's also the idea that maybe the Sphinx itself was once a lion and it was carved down to the head because the head is not proportional to the rest of the body, right? And so we definitely know it was carved down from something, especially looking at the erosion patterns.
Who would have carved it down? Khufu or Khafre?
The son. So
Khafre.
We might be getting these names mixed up
Khufu's
back and forth, but I think it's
the father.
Khafre. Khafre is the Sphinx.
Yeah,
Khufu is
let's
the
check
pyramid.
Don't trust me on that.
Yeah.
Christ.
But again, like if they found it and the Sphinx really is older than them by thousands of years, 6,000 years potentially or longer, then maybe he's the one who recarved the head to make it more of a pharaoh like himself.
Yeah,
But
you got it right, by the way. Khafre was the son of King Khufu.
got it.
So we're good.
But that's the other thing, and this kind of ties into the Sphinx, why the Sphinx is so mysterious, because when they were studying the geometry of the face of the Sphinx, one, the two sides are perfectly symmetrical. Most faces have a little bit of imbalance in the face of people. Like most people's faces are not perfectly
right, yes.
symmetrical,
Yeah.
right? And so there have been statues found of the actual Khafre, and they've compared the faces, and most notably they compared like line angles between like what is the angle from the eye to the edge of the lips, or like from the tip of the nose to the chin, and those types of angles. And you see that the face of the Sphinx is distinctly got more pronounced jaw. Like the angle's a lot steeper on the Sphinx, right, than what Khafre's other statues reflect. And they showed the pictures of these angles actually in a newspaper decades ago. Kind of like when I think it was when they were like studying the Sphinx with John Anthony West and all this. So it might have been the 80s or the 90s. But a dentist from, I believe it might have been like Brooklyn or something.
It's a bad start.
Yeah. But a dentist from somewhere, I believe it was in the New York area, saw the pictures and the line angles of the face or whatever. And he goes, I can tell you, as I think he was an orthodontist, he goes, that jaw and that jawbone looks distinctly African American. Like it looks African. And so that's why a lot of people don't like, especially the Egyptians, don't like the narrative that the Sphinx was not built by them, because, you know, and this is why someone like, there's so many names that we've said today. People like John Anthony West and Graham Hancock, they've been called like racist by the Egyptian government, right? Why is it? Because if what they're saying is true, then they believe it's racist to claim that, hey, maybe whoever carved the head of the Sphinx was African, you know, and not Egyptian.
Is there a way? All right, this is a
Even
weird.
though Egypt is in Africa.
Yeah. Like they're basically what they're saying is that they're trying to say that someone of a different race on the African continent than what we know is the Egyptian race now. So, you know, olive skin, whatever, would have carved this. Okay, I got that. Is there a? This is way above my pay grade now, but because I'm going back to like where Khufu is, but also in my mind, I'm going back to where Hancock and John Anthony West may be, and I don't offhand remember if they have year estimations on it. I think they do, but I don't want to say that for sure. Is it possible that what they're claiming, though, would descend to people who lived in Egypt at the time, and that's what they look like, as opposed to what they have, I don't know, evolved to in features now? Is that possible?
Yeah, I guess that's totally possible, which makes you wonder, why is the Egyptian government so adamant about covering up anything that contradicts their narrative? And their narrative is heavily guarded, right? Like anything that's contradictory evidence, they immediately suppress it. And that's like the whole thing with
Zahi
Hawass, who I believe is no longer like in that position. I think he actually got caught like stealing artifacts and selling them on the black market.
Oh, did he? Can
Yeah.
we Google that? Zahi Hawass thief.
Like, I think he
this guy's
definitely
a
got
gem.
fired by the Egyptian government, but
He's such an asshole, that guy.
yeah.
You see anything? Former Egyptian this is 2014. Former Egyptian antiquities minister faces questions over theft from pyramid. You know what? Didn't Matt talk about this? Maybe that was off camera. I think Matt might have talked about this. Makes sense. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.